statistics on this, Bill. Levitated by the human touch.
Here's the pass. Antonio's through. Chance of 4. What a goal! What a brilliant strike by Antonio!
Hello and welcome to the first edition of the new Knees Up Mother Brown podcast. We are looking back at, well, we've got 3 games to look back at this week. We've got Brentford, that was today, so that might be a slightly more emotional reaction as we are only still coming down from the disappointment of that. We have Rapid Vienna in the week, and we have Leeds from last week as well. But before all that, I shall introduce you to my co-hosts. I have Jack Elderton. Jack, hello.
Hello, everyone.
And another young one, young Callum Goodall. Young Callum, hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
I like saying young. I don't know why. I'm Chris Wilkerson, your host for this week, and yeah, we're trying to bring out a bit more analytical style to the Knees Up Mother Brown litany of material that we have out at the moment, which is why I will defer to my much more intelligent and interesting co-hosts. I'm just here to tie things together. But we best open up with the more painful thing, I suppose, of the last week, which is that horrible Brentford game with that horrible finish. That was actually a quite entertaining game all round, a mixture of styles. In the Premier League in the last week, we've had 2 maybe of the most energetic teams, almost the most chaotic teams, it feels. And it's certainly been at least interesting to see how we deal with it. Thoughts on today's game, Jack? You were there.
Well, I've just got back through the door. I think there's a bit of a difference between the quality of the performance and the result we got in the end. I feel a little bit disappointed to have come away without a draw. I thought we did more than enough in the second half to deserve a draw in the end. I thought that we were very slow out of the traps. I think we're starting to see some of that Europa League effect come into play, and we were just really, really slow for the first 15 minutes, and they created a lot of chances in that period. And then I thought the game was relatively even after that, and then we really took control in the second half. And yeah, just to get sucker punched in the end was obviously really, really, really disappointing.
That's 2 games. Our 2 games after Europa League exploits, and that's 2 defeats now. I think we've gone 2 defeats to very late goals. I mean, you can argue whether it's a little bit of bad luck with the late goals. You can argue whether that is, they're tied together, whether that's midweek games and tired legs towards the end causing mistakes. I mean, I saw the game pretty similar. I thought we were awful to begin with, and then Brentford seemed quite happy to go back, let us have a bit more of the ball. Once we had that ball, we settled on, controlled it, probably from 30 minutes-ish onwards, maybe a bit more level. Second half, we completely controlled, and then at the end, blew up, Cal, really, as far as I can see.
Yeah, pretty much. I think you're right to highlight the tired legs. I think just generally, and we saw it in the last game as well, the concentration towards the end of games is just not there. I think to lose it so late is always bitter, but like we mentioned before, the free kick was just so silly. Like it just didn't need to be given in such a dangerous position at such a important point of the game. Like, yes, all right, there's taking one for the team, and there was a lot of that going on today, particularly on the Brentford side of things. I think it was ridiculous how cynical it was.
Yes.
Some of the refereeing as well was just terrible, but some of the blame has got to go to Moyes, I think, for not managing the squad effectively in certain areas. Basically, where were the subs is what I'm trying to say. We talk about concentration, but you can't blame anyone but yourself if the reason is clearly tiredness or lack of concentration, yet you refuse to bring on any players off the bench. We had players on the bench. Yeah. You've got Diop, you've got Vlasic, you've got Krau to bring some legs into the midfield, Lanzini. But I don't know. And it's not a great vote of confidence in those players either, is it? If you're looking to get something out of the game and you look at your bench and go, nah, I'd actually rather have these tired individuals.
I'm sure you can argue as well, it was more than just tiredness. Also, some of them weren't exactly setting a place alight that they had to stay on. I mean, I think it's, concentration will be lesser and mistakes will be more when you are tired. I'm not a sports scientist, but I'm pretty sure those things will link because it's your legs working. They don't go as well. Your brain doesn't work as well. But I don't think Ogbonna needed to take him down. I thought it was weird. You won't know on commentary. I think they were pretty happy on the stream I was watching. But he'd done it in a way that it was a necessary evil. And I think Ogbonna's always. I don't want to say it's a cynical Italian in him, but he's quite happy to wipe someone out if there's 30% of a chance it's something's going to happen behind him. And he did just wipe him out. That said, the defence wasn't good enough defending the free kick. And I'd also opinions on whether Fabianski should be doing better. I think he should do better the second, and there's some will say he should be doing better with the first as well.
I'm not sure that he could have done much more with the first. I thought the first save was pretty good. I know there's the parried into danger thing.
Into danger?
Yeah.
It's literally spooned it out in front of him. I don't know. It happened in the United game as well, didn't it? Where he sort of point blank, admittedly it wasn't as point blank this time, kind of palmed it out. Yes, he's made the stop, but where has it gone? And I think in the United game it was more forgivable. I think today you could have maybe put it off to the side a little bit, like just so it's not directly in a straight line.
Well,
like
this is the second one, though, isn't it?
On the second. The second under. Sorry. I haven't actually. I've seen comments on the forum basically saying that if you look at it straight on, that first one he's not pushed it far wide. I thought to begin with he was very unlucky, and actually I'm concerned that Mbemo was running, Ogbonna was watching and then running.
Well, I have more issues with the first goal than just that. I think that the fact that they've got him behind in the first place, where Zuma's just not watching the run of I'm not sure who takes the first shot, but Zuma's just not paying attention to who's running off of him. That creates the opportunity in the first place. I think the first save from Fabianski is fine. I think if you're asking him to turn it round the post, in that situation, you're asking for too much.
The first save was good, I think, to get down that low as well. Like he's not young anymore.
Exactly.
He's getting down to those corners.
And then I agree that Ogbonna should be following in to stop Mbemo from tapping that home. That's so issues with both centre halves for the first goal, and then the second goal. I agree with you, Cal. Like he's got to push that wide. He can't push that straight back out in front of him.
Or even over. Like could he push it over his head? If he's going for that sort of forward motion, just at least go a little bit upwards rather than just almost like you're pushing your mate or something.
But then also in terms of the concession of the free kick, which you were talking about earlier, I was disappointed with conceding the free kick right at the end, but I was actually more disappointed with the free kick we conceded just after we scored. I thought there were two incidents just after we scored the goal. We conceded a similar stupid free kick on the edge of the box, which Brentford didn't do very much with, but twice to concede free kicks on the edge of your box just by sort of lazy defending.
Well, and it happened in the first half as well. There was the one that Zuma got booked for, and he had, quite a poor game.
I've seen people saying that he played well. For me, it was an absolute shocker.
I thought he was I thought he couldn't handle Tony. I thought as a pair they seemed to. I know it's not 1996 anymore, but two strikers isn't that revolutionary an idea, and they just looked like they couldn't. It felt a little bit like they couldn't handle Niall Quinn and Kevin Phillips at times. It was just. Tony, to be fair, I thought his one-touch passing and for the goal was excellent. But the pair of them didn't do enough, and I thought Zuma just looked like he was completely unsettled. And when you hear certain people would say that Tuchel didn't want him because he couldn't handle the press, today looked like a game where Tuchel probably knows his stuff.
Oh, Zuma was in hell against Tony. I've been slow to come round on Tony, probably just trying to be too clever by half and saying that I'm not sure if he's going to get the same amount of chances that he got in the Championship and in the Premier League. And I'm not sure about his goal output, but he absolutely dominated Zuma today. And I was saying before the game, we've watched Tony do this to a number of other centre-backs, but this is going to be a different challenge. Two excellent centre-backs in the air. But Zuma, I don't know how many times I watched him jump under the ball. Go up for an aerial, jump under the ball and just watch the ball go off behind him. It's just so frustrating in terms of the ones that he could have won. And then the 50-50 duels with Tony, he lost virtually all of them.
There's a reason he's not at Chelsea, and while you will get those performances where he looks a Champions League player, I'd imagine it's going to be that lack of consistency. And he's always looked a defender who's got a bit of a rick in him, and I think possibly off his balance, off his game, that's just going to get highlighted. And I don't think we handled from the start. We didn't handle what they were doing. I don't think we handled them for 50 minutes. I didn't think we did particularly well with Leeds. Even we'll go on to Leeds at the beginning, but it just looks like that energy, and it's a little bit unlucky again, either side of your Europa game, to have played Leeds first, Brentford afterwards. But they should be learning lessons as well, and it didn't look like they had, and the midfield didn't look like it had. It's quite unfortunate to go through a podcast and just think, who can we pick out after a loss who's played badly? But if we've gone, we've talked about Zuma, we've talked possibly about Fabianski, and we've talked about a bit about Ogbonna at the end, then you have to talk about the first 45 minutes that Souček had as well, which was him looking... He does have times where he doesn't look quite as smooth as others, but he just looked lost.
Yeah. I think it's like the second time we've seen him do this in as many weeks, right? Just have a really, really leggy performance, and this is where I come round to exactly on what Cal's saying. There's a point at which Kral's a good enough player. There's a point at which you're going to have to give Souček a break and let someone else step in and do that job. And yeah, Souček really, really struggled in the first 45 minutes. Didn't think he was with the pace of the game at all, along with a number of players, it must be said.
Yeah, it didn't click for a long while. It looked to begin with like we were going to play those channel balls for Antonio, and he did. I think it was Janssen twice on the outside. Unfortunately, both times his footwork was poor once he'd got into a good position.
Yeah.
And again, you kind of have to get used to that with Antonio sometimes. Sometimes he's going to do the hard thing and then make the easier part look like a real
Especially
difficult moment for him.
Some of the goals he's scored of late as well. Like he's pulled out some crazy touches, and then it's just as it always has been throughout his West Ham career, that sort of lack of finesse. He's just often just even on those goals, to be fair, just but not bumbles. Bumbles isn't the right word. More just powers his way through. Just gets his body into you, and good luck. Good luck standing in his way, because he's an absolute unit. So.
I think if you're going to talk about Antonio's lack of finesse, that you sort of do have to counterbalance that with the fact that one of the best chances we created in the first half was a lovely bit of awareness from him in the box to drop a pass back into Ben Rama, who had that space in the far corner. And Antonio of old would 100% have received that ball and tried to spin and get a shot away himself, but just to have the awareness to receive the ball and pop it straight back into Ben Rama was probably one of the best moments, if not the best moment we had in the first half.
Yeah, completely.
His vision on the pass has improved. He's improved as an all-round player.
We saw it against Vienna, didn't we? Like similar sort of, well, not exactly similar, but similar in the sense that the situation he found himself before setting up Rice, Antonio of even last season would have levered that into Rosed with his left foot rather than having the awareness to square it. And I think that is promising, and also especially promising given he's clearly very motivated to get goals this season. Like he said himself, I don't know how tongue-in-cheek it was, but like targeting the Golden Boot and stuff. So with that as his goal, and he's still willing to lay it on for his teammates as well. And I can't remember if it was in that game, but like 4 key passes for your number 9 is pretty decent output for someone, like we say, we don't consider to be the most technically fit, polished like player. But I think that's it. It's like you'll get moments like that, and it's just those inconsistencies. But the pros massively outweigh the few negative moments that he has.
If it's fair to me to say that Souček had a bad first half, it would be unfair of me not to mention that he did step up in the second half and was a much better player. Granted, at Brentford, I don't know whether it was... I mean, it's hard to know whether that was fully our performance, and I did feel Rice also had a better second half and was winning the ball back a lot more. But as a team, we were dominant in that second half, and as many as people may be disappointed in the result, you shouldn't be disappointed in the performance of that second half, because if any team deserved to win, I feel it was us, Jack.
I thought the second half was really, really dominant, and Brentford had 3 shots in the second 45 minutes, and 2 of them came in with 2 of the last 3 kicks of the game. I think the changes, I mean, we didn't change any personnel at half-time, and we've seen Moyes do this a number of times this season, but he brought Bowen inside a little bit, and Antonio was doing a very good job in the first half of running the channels, as you said before, and his footwork let him down a couple of times. And when you're playing against a quite rigid back 5 that's sitting a little bit deep with 3 midfielders in front of it, one of the most important things to do is to keep them shifting from side to side, and Antonio running the channels is a very important part of that, and he is excellent. His output, energy-wise, of getting down the channels and causing teams problems is one of the real strengths of his game. And I felt that in the first half we were quite reluctant to just pop the ball over the top for him. And actually some of our best moments came, I think one of the best moments of the first half came with Souček spinning and just playing this first time pass over the top for Antonio. And Brentford are a really direct team. For as much as everyone says they really enjoy watching Brentford, they're a really exciting team to watch. Partly that is because they're winning. The style of play is quite defensive and then super direct. Hit Tony and get Mbeumo running off of him. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And they were doing that to great effect in the first half. And I felt that we were a little bit reluctant to do that in the first half. And in the second half, Bowen came inside and we were much happier to just hit the channels, let Antonio pull centre-halves out of the central space and let Bowen come into that central space, which then opened a lot more room for Souček or Rice to come up and get a little bit of advanced with the play rather than receiving and having these three midfielders running out to them and pressing really hard as Brentford do. And I think that was a really important thing to recognise. One of the things I noticed in the first 45 as well with Brentford is they shift so quickly to each side of the pitch and they get three men across the press really fast. They leave this huge gap on the other side of the pitch. And I think when you're watching a team do that, if you're trying to shift the ball really nicely and move it with quick short passes as we were in the first half, it's quite difficult unless you've got really lots of quality in those areas. And let's be honest, I think people didn't necessarily have their best game in those areas today. Benrahma wasn't the best we've seen him play. Fornals probably wasn't the best we've seen him play either. So to notice that, bring Bowen inside and say, look, let's just hit Antonio, force these centre-backs to commit to the wide zones and then get balls into the box as we did in the second half. It just meant we took control of the game. And in the end, I think really unfortunate not to have turned that pressure into a winner perhaps, or at least a draw.
And it's interesting in that because you bring up Benrahma for now. In the first half, I thought actually anything good was coming from their bravery on the ball. They are players who will bypass 3 or 4 midfielders to play a pass. They will play even on the ground. And they're not just smacking it in the air. They're doing those kind of clever passes on the floor. But second half, Cal, when the space was being created by Antonio and by Bowen's hard work up top, almost like a top two in a way, we weren't getting those two taking advantage really.
Yeah, I think that's it, and I think that probably came with the sort of not shift in focus, but I think there was an imbalance really because a lot of the good stuff was coming through Bowen and Antonio, and we sort of identified that. It almost meant that the side of the pitch where Benrahma and Fornals was being neglected somewhat, and like they were sort of removed from the play. I thought anyway, more so than they usually are. And I think it's almost a double-edged sword in that sense because I think I really like what I saw between the sort of interchange between Antonio and Bowen, and I think that's something we'll probably start to see a lot more of the more we utilise Bowen as a lone striker in Cup or Europa League games, because he'll become more comfortable playing that central role. He'll start to work out what sort of channels he needs to be running if he's in the centre, because one thing that was always quite notable of Bowen's game, I thought, was that he, of all the players in our attacking outfit, was the one that was most strictly in his position, if that makes sense. Like you'd have Fornals, Benrahma, Antonio, who are all sort of very free flow, like they have their positions, but they often occupy each other's positions. Whereas Bowen was always very much a right winger who cuts inside on his left foot. And that was his thing, and he'd get the ball on the right, and he'd either run down the flank and cut inside, or he'd make a sort of diagonal run with the ball, lay it off inside, and then look to run back outside or in behind. And now I sort of think that adds a sort of third or fourth dimension to the attack if we've got Bowen sort of doing the sort of stuff that Fornals and Benrahma had already been doing before, because it means we can play the same sort of football on both sides, and that sort of, like we were saying, Brentford are doing so quickly, like shifting lanes, so to speak, on the pitch with even more pace because we have all sort of 3 lanes of the pitch comfortable interchanging with each other. But I think it's just striking that right balance so that you don't become overly focused on targeting one like area of the pitch or trying to play all down one side, unless like you're trying to expose a weakness. But that wasn't the case today. I just think it was more of a, well, as this Antonio and Bowen are the biggest threats, so let's just go for them.
Oh, so it was interesting because I did think Bowen drifted more today, and I know I disagree. I think we disagree on something. I thought Soufal had one of his better attacking performances, but often, especially in the first half, he was putting in balls or just hitting the ball against a defender to win a corner because he was quite isolated with Bowen drifting. Because whilst Antonio and Fornals or Ben Rum will often drift to the left and Bowen stays rigid, I don't think anyone compensated by drifting to the right. And it showed. I mean, in the end, I think in the second half, after a poor first half where he was banging long balls forward, whereas you were saying we may not have been eager to go long. I think we weren't doing long passing. There was just times where Soufal was just banging a ball forward because he didn't want the ball in defence.
The weight on his passing today was terrible.
Yeah.
I think we saw, was it 55% pass success rate?
Yeah, 55%
today.
Yeah.
Which is woeful by anyone's standards. Like, generally defenders, less so fullbacks, but you tend to see them with higher.
I'm just wondering whether
rate.
that was a lot of that is from those blocked crosses and those blocked passes where I think he did look like he was just playing for the corner. Because I thought in the second half his energy levels, he's looked to me like someone who's had a long summer and a long season already, and he's been tired. I thought he was getting up into the box. He had that shot well saved by Raya. He had the chip ball into Bowen that should have ended in a goal.
Yeah.
Yep. I think in the second half, when Bowen comes in the side, the game suddenly opens up for him. I think the issue in the first half, and it was really, really marked, I've got to be honest, is that when he was receiving the ball, like you say, all of his passing was wayward. Sometimes he was looking to go long and just wasn't picking anyone out, or wasn't getting anywhere near any teammates. And sometimes he looked a little bit nervous on it and was just getting rid of it to get pressure off of him because Brentford were pressing quite high. In the first half, and then other times just like simple balls into midfield that were just not connecting with their target. But yeah, in the second half, like you say, the attacking output did show, and that's with Bowen drifting inside, you just all this room suddenly opens up for him to drive into, and he did make a good fist of that.
Are we at a point where Soufal and Souček can only play well if the other's playing well? I mean, that's linked. I mean, I know they are clearly. I mean, they almost look like they could cry when the other one gets hurt. But I mean, it's quite contrasting because I would say, and it's worth pointing out, and he rarely gets a lot of credit, that Cresswell, in terms of on the ball, his passing from the back was beyond anything. I thought the rest of them were quite poor compared to him, and if I'd have given him my man of the match in the game because his delivery's on point, and he does. I mean, he hits a firm pass usually. I can always say that about him, and he always takes his standard touch out of his feet, whatever the situation, whatever's going on. He's taken that touch out of his feet, but he today didn't look so concerned by the press. I don't know if that's because he's confident on his passing.
I noticed that. I thought it was really interesting. I mean, I'm sure as the episodes go by in this podcast, everyone will soon learn that I am the biggest advocate for replacing Cresswell and have been for a long time. I think left back is the one position that we probably should be targeting. However, I will give him his dues today. And to be fair, the game against Rapid as well. Against Rapid. He's looked great. His delivery's been brilliant. Against Leeds, it was pretty poor, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, I think we've seen a version of Cresswell, particularly today, come back in a weird sort of way where I was getting flashbacks to when he was playing as the third centre-back, where he was sort of, those were the balls that we'd come to sort of, it was so obvious that he was a fullback playing at centre-back because he had that ball carrying sort of confidence on the ball that a lot of centre-backs might not have, and that sort of the passing accuracy and confidence to sort of play what would usually, almost like he's playing what would be a horizontal pass, so across, but vertically instead, and then he gets the weight on it spot on, and that's something that's been missing this season. But today we saw that come back, but still in a back four rather than in a back three, and it's always something I've thought has been quite a bit of a weakness of Cresswell's, especially last season. He's a great left-sided, or he's a good left-sided centre-back. I wouldn't have ever said he was a great one. But in a back four, he's not great. And I think there's still question marks about how great he is defensively in a back four. And that's obviously something that's covered if you add an extra defender in and play a back five. But like I say, I've got to give him his dues today. His crossing was great. He had 14 crosses with 50% success rate, which
That's pretty excellent.
is pretty impressive. To be honest.
That was our first half threat, really. I think when we were struggling
Yeah.
to get into the game, you thought, well, we're getting corners, and on corners,
Delivery was brilliant today from corners. Delivery was absolutely fantastic, and actually
we worked on some things as well.
Yeah, but it's not. It's just on Cresswell. It's just nice to be able to say he's the most press resistant member of the back four again. I mean, that's something I used to say a very long time ago, and it's really nice to be able to say that again. And actually, we'll come to Leeds and we'll talk about Cresswell then. And there were some really big issues with him defensively in the Leeds game, but today, defensively, I thought he was really good. I thought everyone else really struggled, and I thought actually you could see the difference. There were moments on both sides of the pitch where Ogbonna stepped out or Zuma stepped out to go for an aerial. Soufal did a pretty terrible job of noticing in those moments that he needs to cover across and step sort of 3 or 4 steps inside, just in case the ball goes over them. Cresswell, pretty much every time the ball went over Ogbonna, was there just to mop it up and drop it back into Fabianski. And it looks really simple, and you don't necessarily really notice it when you're watching. But it's just switched on defending that's actually you're used to seeing the mistakes come down his side, and they didn't at all today. It was really, really good.
Yeah, and I think on occasion today, I can't remember how many times it happened, but definitely a couple to my mind. Sort of his past precedent of not being that great in those situations came back to bite him, because I think a few times where he was covering, I think the centre backs, Ogbonna or Zuma, Ogbonna on his side basically had assumed that he wouldn't be there, so made a cynical foul when in fact he was actually already running back to cover, and we would have been fine. The foul didn't need to be made. But I think that sort of precedent mixed with a lack of concentration and clearly a lack of communication between the back four sort of caught us out, and ultimately obviously led to that goal where we gave away a free kick that probably didn't need to be given, because I think it would have been a fine situation defensively. I don't think anything really would have come of that attack.
I do hate to be this guy, but this is, I mean, we're talking about Cresswell being excellent. This is a game where Cresswell wasn't playing against a right winger.
No, it was a right wing back, wasn't it?
This is Cresswell was brilliant, but you could really see today that he wasn't up against the winger. He didn't have that pressure directly on him, and he was able to focus on Mbermo's runs inside, and he was very good for that. But there's a big difference between playing against the front two and covering across to having to deal with a right winger and then cover your centre back when they step out as well.
Yeah, before we move on, I do think we should mention definitely the goal, which we have yet to discuss, and also before that, Bowen, and it's all Bowen centric, the headed chance. Surely he has to be scoring those. I haven't seen the XG number, but surely he has to be. And which is my biggest problem with him. He doesn't seem to. I mean, he's ended up scoring a goal he probably shouldn't have scored.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do the two sides of the same coin, right? Bowen's finishing's been off for a little while. He's been really struggling to put the ball in the back of the net. You saw that on the first one. He absolutely has to score that chance. It's not quite a sitter, but it's a header 6 yards out or 7 yards out,
Good height.
Towards the near post. Great height. Keepers kind of all ends up at the near post. All you have to do is hit sort of 30% of the goal towards the back post, and you're going to score. And pretty much at any height as well, you're going to score. He did the right thing by heading the ball down, just missed the target. And then the goal. How's he scored that?
Yeah,
how's that got through?
He's just come onto that and smashed it.
Yeah,
it looks like a man who's not scored a goal for a while, and it was 16 games, and has just thought, I'm just going to hit this booming ball. And he's just hit that ball perfectly. And to his credit, at least he made contact with that header, whereas Antonio had a reasonably
what a ball in by Rice as well, man.
And it was a gorgeous ball. It was weighted perfectly. The boy had done it everything
no backlift,
he intended.
just out of his feet. Oh, mate.
And if not only did Antonio miss an easy chance and not even make contact with the ball, he's made such a bad job of it that he's put Souček entirely behind him. And it's probably those moments where you go, these are why these players possibly haven't played for clubs that have played a lot of European football and have played top four and are arguably, in inverted commas, better than us, because of those moments.
Yeah, it's almost, Rice has to me has looked a little bit tired over the last few games, and it was just almost another one of those moments where he's been in a game, he's not necessarily been at his best, and then he just provides this magical moment, and
Yeah.
we really should have scored because you both said it, it's an absolutely outstanding cross into the box. It's a wonderful piece of skill by Rice. And Antonio should score, and then if he hadn't made such a fist of it, you're right, Souček probably gets onto it at the back stick, and we scored that way. But yeah, we had a number of really good chances in the second half that we didn't put away or didn't turn into a better chance, really.
We've got negative from that Brentford game, a game we probably should have won. Whereas I came from the Rapid Vienna game thinking we were poor and lucky and got away with being lackadaisical and probably just maybe a little bit arrogant. Granted, we made a lot of changes, and people coming out saying that was a professional performance was, to me, it was the opposite of professional, because we had control of a game and let it slip, and nearly let it slip to where we conceded, Gal, because we weren't really on it.
Yeah, I think there's this big thing about like what even is a professional performance. Like I think a lot of people say, oh, it's a professional performance as long as you win, basically.
Yeah.
But that is just not, like you've rightly pointed out, that's not it. Like you can have a terribly unprofessional performance and still get a result, which I think we proved. Like we made an absolute hash of it against by far the worst opposition in the group, who are in terrible form, and at the time of playing them they were joint bottom of the Austrian Prem. Which is like, come on, like they
Just
were
lost
not
3-0 at home to Sturm Graz.
Yeah, exactly. And like, fair enough. Yes, we got the job done, great. But it's not even like, okay, against Zagreb, yes, that was a professional performance. We did get the job done, but we were away from home against Zagreb in a hostile environment. Like this was our big night, our first ever group stage match in the Europa League at home under the lights with a pyrotechnic display that was probably worth more than our transfer budget. Like.
So A-League.
Yeah, it was kind of unreal. I can't lie. But yeah, I just thought, yeah, we made a much harder job of it than it needed to be. Like they were there for the taking on so many occasions, and we just could not put the game to bed.
I think I'd look at the difference between a professional performance and not professional performance. Zagreb, did they have much of a chance? Did they offer anything? Were they under threat? Whereas Rapid Vienna, it wasn't a penalty. But the referee could have looked at that screen and gone, maybe he's flicked his leg and that's why he's caught his own foot.
Exactly.
And then he gives a penalty. I mean, you're a bad decision. You're a bit of bad luck away. And they had openings. And they had openings where they had space in front of goal. And for some reason, they've decided that every time they got space within 25 yards, they had to shoot. Thankfully, they were rubbish. It's not analytical. It's not particularly intelligent. But I've not got much more to say than they were rubbish. And we could have got caught cold.
Well, I think before I give way to Jack, that is pretty much how I would define professional as well. Like against Zagreb, who had again, they were way worse than I thought they were going to be. Like but they definitely have more talented players, and we managed to like nullify their attack completely. They didn't get a single shot in that game, like. On target, sorry. Whereas Vienna were, like you say, carving us open like semi-frequently and could have had a penalty. When Goodall came on, that guy just absolutely tore it up. Like I don't know where he came. Like I think we did a tiny bit about him in that article we wrote the other day, but he just completely changed it. Like his pace, his directness was class. But yeah, I just think a team of their quality, we should be able to dominate, and it was not a dominant performance.
It wasn't even a full first string from Rapid Vienna. They rested players because
they rested their top scorer.
Relegation fight, I suppose.
No, they got a big 6-pointer this weekend. I'm not sure how it's gone, but they had a big 6-pointer this weekend. And so, Goodall was rested. It was their form player coming into the game. You had Iwu shifted out to right back with Stojkovic dropped. Ljubicic didn't play, who I thought was quite good when he came on.
Yeah.
I think against the second string of a team that has barely managed to pull in many points in the Austrian Bundesliga, it was a poor performance. I wouldn't say that they carved us open on many occasions. I thought they were absolutely woeful in possession. I think they should have done on several occasions. I think my favourite moment, bar the goal, the first goal, that is, of the whole game, was one of their more promising openings, and the ball falling to Erkan Kara about 25 yards out, and he could have controlled it and run towards goal, but no, just first time shot
Mate, they
about
were
20 yards
thumping
over the
them all
bar.
over the gaff. Every player. It was just like they just were like, right, I want to score a European goal away in London. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna absolutely tonk it from where like
It
the
was.
decision making was horrendous.
The decision making was appalling. I will to Erkan Kara's defence. He got a hat trick in today's 6-pointer, and they won 5-2.
Oh, there you go.
So I mean,
Smashed
he was
it.
obviously just getting his rage,
Boys are
against
back.
us.
They're back.
Yeah,
It's comeback season.
it was an interesting one because I mean, we'll go on to individual performances, and I was worried from the start because there was a big looping ball in the air, and when there's a big looping ball in the air, we have a certain French centre back who doesn't like the ball really high and quite slow for some reason in the air, and he completely missed it. But from then onwards, had a brilliant display, and actually, I thought the centre backs saved our skin. Really, I would give. I mean, Dawson and Diop were probably the two best players, arguably the two best players on the pitch come the end of the game.
For me, the three of them, Johnson, Dawson, and Diop, were all excellent, absolutely outstanding. Diop particularly. He had that, like you say, that sort of very shaky moment, almost a classic Diop moment of a high ball coming down, and you just think, oh no.
He's back.
Yeah, exactly. But from that moment onwards, really, I can only really remember him making one more mistake on the ball. And just being really dominant with all of his duels, nicely on the front foot, and just really solid at the back. And that in combination, like we said, their horrific lack of quality in possession meant that they didn't really create very much. But also special mention for Ben Johnson. Really special mention for Ben Johnson. I know the penalty was a bit of a dodgy moment. When I was watching it, I was from where I sit is sort of behind where that tackle went in, and I immediately went Stonewall pen, because you see the leg come out and you're just like, that I can't see how that's not going to be given. But other than that, I thought he was really good defensively, and then something that I'm not sure I've really seen from Ben Johnson, 2 or 3 line breaking passes. Where's that come from?
I mean, I'm always concerned about his attacking play. I am a little bit concerned, and he's got it in him. He's had games where he's suddenly got an amazing run down the left, and he's put in a wonderful ball. But he doesn't look like an ex-winger to me. In fact, he looks to me like a basic. He often looks like he's the most solid defensive fullback at the club.
Yeah.
And I worry about him going forward. But
well, that's the point I'm making, is I've not really seen him do it before, and this game I particularly remember him receiving the ball on the right, just inside our own half, looking up ahead of him, and just playing a pass that went straight through the attack and midfield of Rapid Vienna into feet of Antonio, who just stepped off the centre back, and it was like, whoa, I've never seen you do that before. Just a flat, quick ball into Antonio, and also Antonio was offside on this one, just marginally. Obviously Johnson wasn't to know that, but played a lovely cross, just looped it over the Rapid defence in for Antonio, and it was probably about half a yard offside, but the quality on the delivery was outstanding, and this is not something we've become accustomed to seeing from Ben Johnson. This is him developing and adding to his game, and actually arguably getting the chance to play in his preferred position, being at left back for ages, and every time we've seen him, he's been at left back. And actually, a lot of the games we've seen him in have been against Man City, Man United, Man City again, Man United again. How much do you expect from a fullback in terms of their attacking returns against the team, at the top of the league? So with an opportunity to play against perhaps inferior opposition and in his preferred position, I thought it was really, really good.
that's good, because we need some positives from that game, having started you off on a negative. I came in with an old angry man attitude, but there were positives throughout. I mean, maybe not throughout, but at least end and top and tails of it. We were the better team, Cal, undoubtedly.
Yeah, no, we definitely were, and I think just on that Johnson point as well, I think as annoying as it was watching him play at left back, because he's clearly not a left back, he is a right back. I think one thing that it has done wonders for is his confidence on his left foot. And it's now when you see him on the right, his delivery on his left foot is not even bad. And he now has the option of kind of, which is uncommon really for a fullback, to cut in on his weaker foot and with almost like an inside forward would, like Bowen or something, but he can also cross from the byline as well. So it's sort of, in terms of his output, it was good against Vienna. We don't know how often we're going to see him anyway, or like how consistently he's going to be able to replicate those sorts of performances. But to have those options when he gets into the final third of, oh, do I just go to the byline and stick one in? Do I cut in and put a pass in, either into the box with my left foot or lay it off towards Rice, Fornals, Souček, whoever might be in that position, to sort of switch it across to the other side and recycle possession, which I think is a really exciting aspect that we could see develop. And to be honest, given how leggy Soufal looks and has looked in recent games, I wouldn't be against giving him a run out in the Prem. Like, I know he's our backup right back. We've also got Fredericks, who is out injured, and Soufal's very much the Premier League option, but it's hard to see where he's gonna get that much of a rest. And I think he probably would have been more rested had Fredericks not got injured in that game, because when he was meant to be getting a rest, he then had to come on and play football that he wasn't expecting to play. So in terms of managing minutes, I wouldn't be surprised and would be in favour of seeing a bit more of Johnson in coming fixtures. Likewise, I'll pose to you, how would you feel about seeing Diop play a bit more, given, again, how tired, not necessarily tired, but there was some lapses of concentration, particularly from Ogbonna, just given, well, unfair, because Zuma was far worse against Brentford today.
Yeah.
But I think talking on the context of minute management, like Ogbonna, yes, he's sort of the stalwart in our back line, but he is also old, and I think you can't expect him to play every single game. And I think just in terms of future planning, why not start to sort of test out or bed that centre-back partnership now, rather than wait until Ogbonna's really been run into the ground and then we're trying to solve a problem with something that's not tried and tested, or at least hasn't been given a chance to develop. I don't know, I just wouldn't be against seeing maybe him next to Zuma at some point again.
I'd say my big concern is that we're at Everton next, and this Rafa's gone quite nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
He has gone quite... I'm gonna, he's got a little bit 4-4-2 classic, and I do wonder whether, if you're putting Rondon or even Calvert-Lewin there, who can rise in the air and he can run those channels.
Yeah. Is he going to be back? Do we know?
I think that will be touch and go. I'm not sure, because we've got an international break now as well.
Oh, brilliant. Well, actually, it's brilliant, because it means...
Well, we need the rest. I mean, unfortunately, the players that need the rest are the players who are going to go and play international games. I mean, at least Ogbonna will get a bit of time, but you'd say that Fornals, Souček and Soufal and probably Rice are the ones who need to rest. And I haven't even looked to see where Antonio will be flying to I mean, to lose 3-0 to Panama or whatever. But I just...
Oh, can I briefly jump in on the Diop thing?
All right, then, go on.
Which I think it's quite good for him to develop. Playing the Europa League games alongside Dawson is a good thing for him, because he gets that opportunity to be the main man as such in terms of making play from the back, and I think that's a really good thing for him to then potentially come in alongside Zuma in the future, rather than coming in the position that he's been in for a really long time, playing second fiddle to a more, I don't know, commanding centre-back and someone who's more comfortable on the ball. So for me, I want to see how he gets through the 6 group stage games with Dawson. If he comes through all of those 6 games and we say, yeah, he's been really good on the ball, yeah, he's been really good at the back, then let's talk about replacing Ogbonna. But up until that point, Ogbonna was absolutely outstanding for the last, 18 months, and has been such a crucial player for us. And yeah, I think we were off the pace. Both centre-backs were off the pace today against Brentford. But how often are you going to come up against the front two, and how often are you going to come up against the front two that's in that good form? I don't know how many times that's going to happen this season. So for me, I would leave it as it is with those two.
I suspect Moyes' first instinct, if we're struggling at the back, will be put Masuaku left wing back, put Cresswell in there, and be solid in that system. The problem is he'll have to find which one to drop. And it'll be, you'd assume, Benrahma, but he's been high on Benrahma this year.
Yeah.
I mean, other notes from that game. I know he very rarely gets any credit for anything. So, and I know my father will shout at me if I don't bring it up. Yarmolenko's pass for the goal,
Oh,
for the first
yeah.
goal,
Let's talk about the
was
goal.
Ooh,
it
yeah.
was gorgeous. And I know we need to talk about the goal because you committed it. What I would only assume is 24 hours, making a lovely visual on Twitter this week about that. And it was a lovely goal, and it needs analysing because there's a lot to look at within it as well, isn't there, Jack?
Well, I spent ages putting together an article on this, with all these lovely moving dots, as you quite aptly described pre-podcast.
I know
There's
my
a lot.
analytics.
There's a lot of things to like about this goal. We are regularly going to come up against defences that sit deep and are very rigid, and Rapid Vienna were exactly that. And a criticism that we've definitely had of West Ham under David Moyes is when asked to play against a deep-sitting defence that's quite rigid in the way that it moves around. How do we get around that? And have we done that successfully enough in the past? And the first goal against Rapid Vienna is, for me, perhaps the perfect or almost perfect example of how to get around a defence that is playing that very, very rigid, deep style. And everyone played a really important part in this goal. So right from the start, you've got Benrahma comes deep to receive the ball off Rice at the start of this move, and that brings Iwu, who's a centre-back by trade, playing out of position at right-back in this game, all the way out of defence, and that creates the first gap, which then has to be covered, and Kelvin Arase, the Rapid Vienna winger, has to drop back and cover the space left. And then perhaps the most unnoticed moment of the whole move is Yarmolenko, as soon as he sees Benrahma dropping into that space, makes a dart in behind, which then drops the defence a yard or two, particularly Kevin Wimmer, which creates this extra time when he then comes back to receive the ball off Benrahma. He can turn, and I think rarely do you get that kind of time in that area, and it's his movement in behind the defence to begin with that creates this space for him to be able to turn on the ball and look forwards. And then there's all these things going on all at one time. Rice has got this fantastic instinct now to go beyond his man as soon as he makes the pass in these situations. So he's making a dart towards the box. Vlasic does something that's quite sensible. And, I could speak about his game more broadly in this sense. He didn't move around very much, and that was generally not a good thing. But in this instance, it was a very good thing, because him not moving while all these pieces moved around him meant that as the recovering player going to track Rice is coming back, sees Vlasic in this sort of half space between the lines and goes, "What? No, I should probably look at that first," and tries to pass Rice off, and that communication doesn't go through, and Rice is able to just charge on into the box. And something that you see the big teams do all the time, something that's great to see us do in these situations, is Cresswell and Ben Johnson stuck to the touchline on both ends of the pitch, which forces both Rapid Vienna fullbacks to just stay an extra second or two, because you see them both look at the gap suddenly opening up. Wimmer's jumped out of defence to press Yarmolenko. Grimal's left to cover this central space, and you see them both look at all this space that they've got to jump into cover, then look back out at these players that are on the touchlines, and that pause of looking at the player they've been marking creates an extra second for everyone in the box to hit this empty space. Yeah, and then it's just quality on the ball, and Yarmolenko being able to pick that pass into Antonio, having the wherewithal to bring that down on his chest and then not just smash it towards goal, see that Rice is making the run into the space, and Grimal has to cover across, keeper has to come to the near post, and then suddenly Rice has a tap in at the back stick. And, all of those moving parts come together, and everyone has to play a crucial role in that. Yarmolenko does brilliantly, Johnson does brilliantly, Cresswell does brilliantly, Vlasic is helpful, Benrahma's great, Rice makes a fantastic run. And that's everyone working hard to combine to just move those pieces into positions that they're uncomfortable in being in, and to create a goal. And that, against a defence that sits so deep, is sometimes the only way to break through, and to see us do it so fluidly and so fantastically was actually really exciting.
I think I'd say the note I noticed for me is last season that run isn't Rice. Last season that run's probably Souček. This season, and we're having to get used to Souček. He's a different player this year, and I don't know if he's a different player because he's tired. I don't know if he's a different player because they've got a Benrahma there rather than a 5-back. I don't know if he's a different player because Rice wants to be or is being a different player. But it's notable this year, definitely, that Rice is doing more of those runs. Probably because also we're playing more football on the deck as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice little pun there.
I know. I
Yeah.
noticed. My eyebrow went, and then I thought I've already made one awful joke. I went to go again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's definitely happening, and I'm loving it. I'm loving seeing Rice add these new sort of facets to his game, because I think as a West Ham fan, it just gets really, really annoying just hearing people say how overrated Rice is and how he's just a defensive midfielder and he can only pass it sideways and blah blah blah. Because we watch him every week and we just know that's just fundamentally untrue. And to see him now doing this like week in week out, like I think I saw a stat saying that he'd I think maybe it was outside of the top 6, but like it was most yards carried.
I think that was in the league. I think it was forward passes as well. I think his passing and his
it's
work.
like he's just in every department he's doing the right things. He's adding goals now to his game, which, to be honest, I don't necessarily know that that's an especially important thing that I would be asking Rice to add to his game. But if you can, why not?
You're not going to turn him down.
It's not a bad thing, is it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it's great. However, the only slight negative is that when he's doing that, he is also better defensively than Souček. So if it's Souček that's sitting back, we lose what Rice offers when it was him sitting back before, because his reading of the game is better, his positional play is better, he's more athletic, his interceptions are much better, and also when he does pick up the ball, the pace at which and the quality of which he can recycle that possession is also just far superior to that of Souček. So whilst it's great having him in these advanced positions, we are sacrificing something else at the other end of the pitch, and I guess against other opposition that might catch us out. Against Vienna, it's fine.
I suspect as well the day where he maybe does or doesn't, who knows, move on to a bigger club, they're going to want him to be the world-class holding mid or defensive midfielder. They're not going to want him to be the very, very good attacking or box-to-box midfielder. I certainly think for England in the next week, you're not going to see Gareth go, you should be pushing on more. He never really pushed on Rice. You could tell that there were times where Rice took it upon himself.
Yeah.
But the thing that he's very, very good at is making sure the defence is really protected. And if we are losing that, maybe that's why we've conceded 2 goals in 4 of the 7 games we've played in the league, because we're losing a bit of protection. Granted, that's a little bit unfair to criticise, right? You're playing too well further forward, so the defence can't play well.
Yeah, it's just a bit of imbalance, really. I think it's just finding that balance between the partnership. Like, we are light in midfield. We have been. It's been a problem for ages. Like, and I don't know. I guess that's the difference between playing a double and a triple pivot, I guess, as well. Is sort of like you finding that balance is more difficult because you've only got 2 players to sort of get everything out of. And when we've got someone like Rice, there's a tendency to lean on him because his qualities are so far above pretty much everyone in the squad. So like, you are just going to ask a lot more from him, but it's Moyes' job to now work out when to use that to great effect, when to basically use each of his skills. Be like, today we want you to be defensive Rice, and we'll use your, like, almost like in Yu-Gi-Oh, where you put down like a bonus card that like increases their powers in one area. So Moyes is just there being like, we want this version of you today, or I'll go run ahead. And
if analytics are too niche for some people, I can't wait for the Yu-Gi-Oh reaction. Because I mean, you've got, I'm sure, great.
I got it. But that's it. I think against certain opposition, like Souček is not bad defensively, he's just not Rice. So against certain opposition, it's fine to ask Souček to take on that role of holding screening midfielder, because he's going to be able to do it against lesser opponents. But there's going to be other games where it's like, right, okay, we're coming up against, I don't know, De Bruyne or Bruno or someone like that, who is like arguably the best players that occupy that sort of area in the pitch. So that's when you're like, okay, maybe Rice like take more of a leading role in sort of bolstering that hold.
The thing for me though is I almost worry less about the prestige of the number 10 we're against, and actually how much the other team and how successfully the other team counters. Because the thing that Rice gives us is almost 2 players worth of resistance to counters.
Yeah.
His reading of the game when in those transition phases is just far superior to almost any other midfielder in the league. I mean, you've got Ndidi who's there with him, Rodri who's there with him, and Fabinho who's there with him defensively in terms of their output. Rice is right there with those players. And Souček is, I think fine in terms of when we're getting back and he's sitting in front of the centre backs. I have no real worries about potentially Rice being the one who's further forward there. It's in those transition areas more around the halfway line. Of how many times you see Rice just jump in and either make a good foul or make an interception or just slow down the move. Like, if it's just a foot in, that means that the move takes 2 seconds longer. That's enough to allow someone to recover. And it's I agree that it's more of a thing for Moyes. Rice is going to want to add to his game. It's good that Rice is adding to his game. It's about how Moyes responds to that and addresses the balance of the team correctly. If he's going to go forwards, then he has to score.
I suppose we've criticised substitutions earlier on, but it is worth noting that one substitution that was made in the Rapid Vienna game it felt like restarted the game for us. And when Fornals came on, I think he got my man of the match because his intensity was, it lifted a flat and dead team at the time.
It was almost like Moyes just went, get on and chase the ball, lad, and he just went after it, and that was crucial, really. One of the most disappointing things in that game is we lost control because we sat off and went, have the ball. You've got no quality, but go and have it, which was just an odd decision. And then bringing Fornals on to go and chase it, you just saw all those mistakes that we saw in the first half came straight back, and we got control back. And actually, when he did get the ball, he was brilliant. All the decisions he made were outstanding.
His passing was ridiculous. His movement was ridiculous. I'm pretty sure there was one moment where he did some mad back heel, which was just beautiful. I was salivating watching that. It was just unreal.
Antonio, Benrahma to his left. Antonio for the win!
Leeds United. That was it was a game that I thought from the first 50 minutes we were going to lose. And I thought we were poor in the same way, not as bad. And I think we're probably, what we've seen in the difference between Brentford and Leeds is a team that's on form and a team that's not on form. And Leeds, shorn of Bamford, playing two teenagers and a midfielder in the back, they scared us. And Rafinha was he was excellent. But we adapted and overcame, I suppose.
Yeah, again, if we're going to talk about changes made, this is another one that's not personnel, but second half, centre backs stepping up, and just getting the defence nicely onto the front foot, going for duels, and not being so worried about what's going to happen behind that, just being confident that they're going to win their individual duels, just allowed us to push on the pitch a little bit more, and suddenly we got way more control, because in the first half that was not the case at all. And we spoke about Cresswell earlier. I think I had in my notes for the game, I just had, a line on each player from the first half, and then I had Cresswell, Callum, and just in all caps, why?
I think he struggles with a player who will just move away and move inside, and Rafinha is their best player as well.
Oh,
no,
hands down.
I'd like him. Wouldn't you like him?
He won't be there long, surely. I can't see him staying there. Maybe if they'd have kicked on from last season, but it seems like they've taken a step backwards, and he's far too good to be there. I don't mind Leeds that much. I think because I like Bielsa, I kind of have a soft-ish spot, not for Leeds, but mainly for Bielsa, and respect what he does. But Rafinha is just a baller. I think as well, Melia as well had a great game. I thought he kept them in,
and that's where you've got to look at it. They goalkeeper was man of the match, undoubtedly.
Yeah,
it does remind me,
definitely.
However, that you might like Leeds. One of my fondest memories is being in New York 7 years ago, and a train, for some reason, all of us singing "We All Hate Leeds Scum." It goes everywhere. That song. I don't know why. That was 1 a.m. after a WrestleMania, because if your Yu-Gi-Oh references wasn't cool enough, nice. I need to bring that in. It was an interesting one because that was a game where I thought Fornals wasn't at his best. Whether he's so used to creating chaos himself that when the game is chaos, he just didn't seem to really get a hold of it.
If we got 15 minutes of Fornals at his best against Rapid Vienna, we got, I don't know how many minutes he was on the pitch against Leeds, but we got that many minutes of Fornals at his absolute worst. It was a pretty much nightmare performance from Fornals. Totally lost in the press. I did not know what he was doing in the press at all. And then in possession didn't really offer much either. And all the little flicks that we're used to seeing, all the little, one-touch passes just didn't come off at all for him in that game.
Should have scored.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a real struggle for him. I mean, real struggle for us down the left side. You had Cresswell at every possible opportunity going,
Mate,
here you go,
Cresswell
come
was
inside.
absolutely stinking the gaff out, mate. He was terrible. His just in every aspect as well. Like defensively, we've already pointed out like Rafinha just had his number all day, like had him on toast. But his we were praising his delivery earlier, but wowzers, that was a woeful performance in terms of output. Like 1 out of 9 crosses landed. Like that's 8 times you've basically just wasted possession just by thumping it into the box. Or well, you'd be lucky if it made the box on some of them. Like it was just bumping it out into touch, like for a goal kick or whatever. Like it was just not his best display.
I mean, it's an interesting one because I didn't think Soufal had a particular game, but I know one of you said that second watch is where you noticed actually he was defensively on it.
Soufal, yeah, for me, second watch, first time around, not particularly impressed. Second watch, and I go through and I make like I've got a lovely Excel sheet and it's got a green column and a red columm for every player with the minutes down the left side. And
the Santa Claus of football, bro.
And Soufal, it was just all in the green column. It just came out like, and actually on both goals, crucial played a crucial part in both goals. Set us away for the second one. So yeah, no, really impressed with Soufal on the second watch. Thought he was pretty much faultless at the back, didn't make a single defensive error, and was played a key part in both goals. So what more can you ask for? Really?
Nicely done with Benrahma. Bowen's in the middle. Benrahma again, caught it so sweetly. Another very good save.
He's a little bit of Benrahma, I think sometimes, and I think we agreed on this earlier, judged on last season, when he does something this season, people still see the player he was. Whereas I'd say probably on 2 occasions he possibly saved us conceding a goal.
Yeah. In terms of his attacking output, created loads of chances, would have scored a goal if it wasn't for an absolute worldy save.
Yeah.
I mean, the 2 saves in the first 10 minutes, blink an egg. It's a 0.55 expected goal on target from Benrahma, which is not unsavable, but it's an excellent save. And then
It's
the
a
Antonio
great shot,
one
yeah.
is I think 0.51. So it's 2 outstanding saves. They're low XG chances, but once they're on target and both shots are going straight into the bottom corner or the corner of the goal, he's made 2 outstanding saves. So yeah, Benrahma would have scored if it wasn't for that save. Created a massive amount of chances throughout the game, and then yeah, for a player that's much maligned for not getting back and doing his defensive work, really excellent. 2 vital slide tackles to get back and save us when Leeds were in transition and countering.
He often leads the press, I feel like, as well. I sometimes feel like he does Antonio's running for him. I noticed it today as well. He'll look around and he'll trigger his little scampering run. He scampers and it's hilarious to watch. But he will go.
I was just going to say that it's almost as though he gets frustrated with sitting in a mid block. Like he'll sort of be teetering behind Antonio for a bit. He's like, what? Like a horse trying to get out the blocks. And he's like, nah, I've had enough. I'm chasing that ball, and he's gone. He presses, but yeah, he's just fun to watch as well, man. Like he's just one of those like classic,
very
skillful, dazzling, sort of on the eye, very mesmerizing player. But like you say, when it's not going his way, it is like you're sort of gritting your teeth at how annoying it is, because it's like, but just do the thing that you should be doing.
Yeah, and I think today he was over eager. I mean, it's interesting whether I feel he'll be the one sacrificed. I'd like to see Moyes one day try a 3 in the middle, whether you call that a triple pivot or not, I don't know. But we haven't played a solid 3 for a long time, and I wonder whether we've got an issue against the press because of it's because we've got 2 midfielders. A lot of people play more in there. Could that be why we're struggling with it?
I think we struggled in that way, like we said about the centre halves. I think you struggle in that way if you've got the centre halves dropped off 5 yards deeper, and then
if you invite the press,
then
you struggle.
And then it's really difficult. But when you've got the centre halves, I mean, both in terms of when Leeds were on the ball and coming forward, the centre halves stepping out and making challenges, that's really important. But then also in possession, you have to, against the press, be willing to go past your man and run forwards and carry the ball as a centre half. And Zuma did that. And that eases some of the load when you.
I was going to say, I think that will come gradually, more naturally with time, because I think what we've been used to before not even used to. Like it's been forced because we had no choice. But we would play Dawson and Ogbonna, who necessitate a deeper line because their recovery pace is non-existent. So you can't take that risk of pushing up higher, because if you do get caught out, there's no chance you're getting back in behind to make that tackle before that ball is a shot on target or a goal. Whereas now with Zuma, you've got a player who's more confident on the ball and is happy to sort of knock it past the man or like play a decent pass. And if he does get caught out by being slightly more advanced, he can turn around and probably catch up with the player who's just broken back through and sort of at least commit a foul, which he obviously did today, which wasn't great, and got yellow, but he's still there stopping that move. So rather than it resulting in a goal or something like it might do if it was Dawson that had been taken advantage of. And I think, like we say, just slowly getting used to that, and it's made more difficult when not both centre backs have that ability, because you're obviously, the key fundamentals of any defense is like making sure all defenders are in line with one another. So it's having the confidence to bring that whole line up with Zuma, even though it's him that's really the one that's most capable of being that more advanced centre back, and just them having the confidence that we can do this, because he will recover and he'll either get there himself or he'll put enough pressure on that sort of breakthrough attacker to allow us to slow the move down and allow us to catch up, and then we're back in position as a defensive unit again, and then we can set the block or tackle or recycle possession, whatever. And I think that will just come with Zuma getting bedded into that back line, sort of Ogbonna working out that partnership, or Sufal getting used to sort of playing alongside him rather than Dawson, and sort of how that means that he has to adapt his game, and sort of it probably does mean he can get away with more stuff as well, in the sense that he's probably not having to cover for as many deficiencies is harsh, but sort of aspects of Dawson's game that Sufal himself would have to factor into his game, because he knows that, oh well, I'm going to have to be the one that absolutely bombs it back, which we saw so much last season. Like the amount of times I've seen Sufal just turn around and absolutely leg it like it's a 100-meter race, like back to the box, because of other players being caught out of position. So I think it was annoying that wasn't the case from the offset, but positive that we saw them do it and do it to great effect. So hopefully, I mean, it's it's a shame, because if this was the most recent game, then you'd be like, well, hopefully that means that we'll go on and sort of have the confidence to know that we can do that now. But then that's just not happened, because that's not what's played out today. But yeah, just as the partnership develops, we'll hopefully see that sort of more aggressive, well, not even necessarily aggressive, just confidence, I think is the key to it. It's just having faith in themselves more than anything, that we can actually do this.
I suppose the irony of that is when we got caught out for the goal, Zuma had done the right thing. He'd used the ball, he'd run forward, he'd gone forward, and behind him Souček had done whatever that was.
Yeah.
And
Looked like a player who needs to lie down, right?
Yeah.
Just look.
You know who's
knackered.
Pretty quick? Alex Kraus. He's a pretty speedy, long-legged, energetic midfielder who maybe, were he on the pitch, might have done something differently.
But I will say on Souček, I mean, that it was a terrible error, and it looked like a player who had been running around like crazy and then got the ball and went, oh, thank God for that, and then just took his eye off it for a second. I actually thought Rice was the player in that game that looked more tired of the two of them. And I thought Souček, after that error, snapped into tackles brilliantly, made a load of great interceptions, and won the ball back a bunch of times for us, which I don't think Rice was doing. I think Rice was the most dispossessed player in the second half, or turned the ball over the most times in the second half. But then the thing about Rice, which you don't get with Souček, is that even when he's like struggling, as I think he was in the second half, particularly against Leeds, out of nowhere you get one of those delightful sideways passes.
Yes, all those sideways passes. He just passes sideways.
Just one of those sideways passes that leads to just a lovely goal.
And I let you describe a sexy goal earlier, so I suppose I should let Cal describe a sexy goal as we come towards the end. That was, I mean, we could discuss Bowen's goal was fine, and Bowen, it was or at least the own goal. It was come from awful defending by Furbo. But the second goal was, off the seat stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, like the Bowen goal today was great in the sense that it was just a brilliant finish. But I love nothing more than a team goal. Like it was just brilliant from start to finish. Every player that played their part in that goal was just brilliant. The passing was exquisite. The sort of speed in turnover of the minute we won back that possession, and the sort of it probably wasn't training ground, obviously, because you can't plan the situation, but you can obviously work on your breaks. But it was like it had been rehearsed or like choreographed. Like they all knew exactly what position they were in. They all knew exactly where to run, or almost like someone had done it on a video game and like drawn a line and been like, right, you run here and then he'll move there. Like it was just brilliant. Like every single execution was just perfect. And
NFL play.
yeah, like it was, yeah. I don't know. I could just talk about how great it was, and then the finish. I mean, yeah, the little touch and just beast mode Antonio back in amongst it, and mate, I love a late goal as well. We love,
Right, so,
we
and
just love to see it, don't you?
it was the thing that made it seem so kind of rehearsed was the fact that this, in a way, it felt like Rice shouldn't have been able to see where Antonio was. He had two players to the side of him. He curled it round them.
Well, I thought he'd slowed it. I thought he'd ruined it. I thought he'd slowed the move down at first, because it was like it was a bizarre pass. It was weird. Like the physics of it just seemed off. Like it kind of went. It was a forward pass that was almost like a rugby pass, like in the sense that it just went along the line, but it went forward and back round into his path, and it was just bizarre. But then I was like, oh, actually, that's just genius. Like, how have you even seen that? Like, your peripheral vision must be like 270 degrees, rather than it was just mad, like just all around it. Oh, yeah, just crazy.
But also the knowledge, the perception to be able to know that if he runs wide and drags runners wide, then he's creating space in the centre. I'm sure he has seen Antonio, but he's driven wide, dragged a bunch of players wide, and then smashed the ball straight into the space that would obviously be left by that. Yeah. But to be able to do that at that pace in such a crucial moment, to make all those decisions and to make them all perfectly, and then the execution to be perfect, it's
one of the best things he's done in that respect. It is. I mean, it's one of those things where I also think he's a player who sometimes looks tired, who gets a second wind, and he does second. Often he'll have a quieter 10-15 minutes, and then at the end of the game he's like, well, I'll screw
when
it.
he starts carrying the ball forward and like
and he often does. He often goes into Scott Parker mode.
It's around the 70-minute mark. He'll start to 70-75 minutes. He'll start, especially if we need to get something. He'll start to like take the ball by the horns and be the sort of playmaker from deep, and rather than sort of having to play through a press or like make 3 or 4 passes to get to the final third, he will just get there and like cut out all the middleman stuff and just take the move from A to B to C in one run, just sort of using his shoulders to bounce people off him and just sort of shield the ball. It's great. And I think that as well, part of that is the leadership aspect. Like he's really grown into this role as the sort of captain, vice captain, however you want to call it, like match day captain but not club captain, like, and to have that at his age, well, it's not even surprising at this point. We all know he's got it, but it really is worth mentioning. Like it's let's just hope he stays. I don't know. Every time I see him now, like again when he scored against Rapid, like his celebration, I was like, oh, please just don't. Seeing him in noble embrace as if to say, come on. I was like, this has to be it. Just never leave. But equally, the more he adds to his game, the likelihood of him being a more and more valuable asset that more and more clubs are going to want does go up. So it makes it harder to keep.
It's worth noticing on those, but I've criticised Antonio's basics. He did his control. He got a lovely touch and he finished beautifully as well. And
the finish was so composed. He usually does.
It was not Antonio. It wasn't Antonio.
It
is Antonio. It's this.
It's the new Antonio. It's
this
Antonio. It's 2021's Golden Boot winner, Michael Antonio.
MA9.
Yeah.
And a future pod, I will want to bring up this player as well, because I thought Vlasic came back and did really well for that. And I think on a future pod, we should discuss his development, because I've seen some talk about him. But that isn't for this evening, I think. I think for this evening, we are finishing on a world-class goal from a world-class midfielder and our new, but not new, world-class striker. And that's us for this evening. Now, next week we'll be back. It'll be an international break, so that will give us a chance to probably a longer pod on some different, less in-game focus, probably some more depth to what we're discussing. We can think about Vlasic. We can look at some of those issues like, say, Ben Johnson's got a year on his contract. We can look at Fabianski, Areola. But for now, that is the first episode of the new Knees Up Mother Brown podcast wrapped. Thank you for everything this evening, Jack and Callum. I've been Chris Wilkerson, and good night.
Right, so we're here in the offices of a Late Late Show with the host of a Late Late Show, James Corden.
Hi.
Big West Ham fan.
Yes. I'm big Knees Up Mother Brown man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm regularly on the general discussion page. There's always someone who's got some information, so I love it. Yeah, it's great. Yes, it's excitement surrounded by imminent disappointment. That's what it mostly is.
Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.